everyone, welcome back to the Entrepreneur Coach podcast. Today's guest has a very special place in my heart. She came to me first as a client. She has turned into a colleague and a friend. She is absolutely incredible. I can go on saying all sorts of great things about her, but I'm just going to let her show you how incredible she is. And we're going to have just a beautiful conversation. Please help me digitally welcome Michelle Desouza.
Hi, Brie. Thank you for having me.
Let's dive in with the first question. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur? How did you find that audacity within yourself to claim your dreams, say yes to them, and then go after them?
Okay, well, I didn't have the audacity. I felt very pushed towards it. In 2020, when the world kind of paused and we were all kind of reevaluating our lives, I was already like in the pits of grief by then. And so I was like, there's nothing else to do because I'd lost my dad in 2018 and my dog. And I was kind of battling with what is my legacy after I leave, which was so obvious that we're not here for a long time when I watched my dad pass. And then 2020 happened and we had a moment to pause and like the whole world was crumbling. But the overarching theme was that we're all connected. And it was so obvious. I kept thinking about, okay, if I were to die tomorrow, what do I want people to remember me for? And then this took me back to my childhood where I grew up in an environment where I was loved, but I was never seen or heard. And I saw those patterns in my mom as an adult. I was able to recognize those same patterns. And I was like, okay, if I could create a space for us women to just share our non-achievements, how great would that be? And I was like, it's going to be small because, that's how we're raised to think. And I'm like, nobody's going to know about it. It's just like me and my friends. And I started it with an Instagram post. And then it just started tapping into like a greater collective consciousness. I was able to recognize that. And that's when I started believing in the idea. But I was not bold enough to just put it out there because I was never raised to be that way. I was raised to be quiet and to do really well and always pay attention to people around me and cater to everyone's needs. I wasn't raised to grab the bull by his horns.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Coach podcast. I'm the Entrepreneur Coach, Brie Seeley. My mission is to help female entrepreneurs like you have the audacity to believe in the inevitability of your success, then to gather the resources, tools, and knowledge you need to create your most aligned and profitable pathway to your vision of success. This podcast is all about providing you with a nitty-gritty behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Forget the success porn and the rags to riches stories. Each episode will pull back the curtain and share the reality of entrepreneurship. I cannot wait to be part of your journey. Michelle Desouza is an immigrant cycle breaker revolutionizing the landscape for women of color, empowering them to build generational health and wealth while amplifying their emotional intelligence. Her work inspires a collective movement of millennial and Gen Z immigrant women, redefining the discourse around career, family, and culture. You can find her community of cycle breakers at SameSkin Co. This is always something that I grapple with in my journey. And I know we can't know for sure what the answer to this question is, but I'm just curious to know your take on it. If at the moment that you got the sliver, if you had been shown the totality in that moment, do you think that you would have said yes to it?
1,000%.
Really?
I still remember the night where I was sitting on my couch and I almost think of it as like this one section of it is like the portal. And I had this it just came to me. But even 3 years ago, I wasn't so confident in just trusting and going with my gut. I know there's a lot of power to that, but I'm so afraid of failure. So afraid of failure. But if somebody was like, oh my God, look at this impact, look at this community 10 years from now, I'd be like, yeah, sign me up. I'll do it. Because I'm not afraid of the work.
That's so interesting. I think my answer would be different. And I joke about this all the time. If I had known every fire I was going to have to walk through and every brick wall that I was going to have to crumble and every mountain I was going to have to climb, maybe it's the Taurus in me that I'm like, I'm just tired.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
Can I just meditate? I mean, who knows? Maybe I would, but I always wonder because it's true that the universe does give us the slivers. And I talked about this at the conference as well, where you were on stage. We get the next step and the next step and the next step. And that if I had seen all 365 times 17 years steps that I was going to have to take, plus who knows how many years on the other side of all of this, would I have said yes? I don't know.
I think yes, because you would probably see the impact and that would probably sway your decision. But look at me. I'm like, I think you'd say yes, even though I say no.
I want to touch on one word that you said earlier, and it's this idea of celebrating our non-achievements. Why do you think our non-achievements are so important?
I was obviously raised in a culture that only celebrates achievements. You know, you had to like get the best grades. Anything below that was just like not even, you were never applauded for effort or, you know, showing up. In keeping with that, that's how I got into the workforce in my 20s. And then I always talk about how witnessing my dad's death experience was such a tremendous gift to me. It was really fucked up, but it was also just something I could have never, ever asked for. And I think that was his parting gift to me, because I was able to share a lot of moments with him before and ask him if he had regrets. And nothing he said was about an achievement. Nothing. And it was just it was so pure. And this is the man who always wanted me to become a pilot, like have all these goals in life. And here he was talking about being happy and fulfilled. My dad was a banker, and he said his only regret was that he didn't pursue his career in like, he wanted to be a chef. I'd never heard that. It was so wild, but you couldn't be a chef in the 80s in India as a man. That has failure written all over it. And it was those moments that kind of just shifted my entire perspective on what life really is. And in coping with like grief and sadness, there's no rule book for it. I realized when other women in my circle would share their little like pockets of loss and grief or sadness with me, they were like whispering it in my ear almost. But that's where I got the most comfort. But no one was out there sharing it publicly. Now, okay, in 2023, we're a little more vocal about it. But, you know, in 2018, which sounds wild, we weren't out there like talking about how we did something and failed at it. So I got most comfort from that. And I was like, we really need to be talking about this so much more. Like, we're all struggling with essentially the same things. I've come to learn that like our stories are different, but our journey is the same. And in that, I think there's so much to be said for like things that are not career goals and, you know, relationship goals, things like that.
Another thing I've really found too is so many of those achievements, those accolades are things that are outside of us. And yes, we can embody them. Yes, we can feel them. But at the end of the day, they're not us. I always think, and I learned this from Abraham Hicks, anything that's outside of us is always conditional. It's always temporary. It's always fleeting. Whereas the things inside of us are what are really true. And so those non-achievements that are within us, the core of our being, our missions, our value, our purpose, our feelings, are things that we don't see, we can't touch, we can't check them off a to-do list, but they're the only things that are true.
Which is so hard to fathom even today, post-COVID, in this crazy world. Where do you have time to sit with your feelings? You know, everyone's running around like a chicken with their head cut off.
Well, you sit in community, in the intentional communities that get created for women to gather and be seen and be held in that space. Another thing that you said was this deep fear of failure. I know that you're not fully on the other side of it. I don't know if any of us will ever fully be on the other side of the things that we came to experience in our lifetimes. What have you found, or what do you do to recognize when that is popping up for you and work through it so that it doesn't hold you back?
I do a lot of spiritual cleaning, internal spiritual cleaning. I have a spiritual therapist who I talk to that works on past life stuff with me. And I know this may sound woo, but it really helps me relate how I'm feeling today to something that maybe has happened even in my childhood. So I do that. I do a lot of self-talk. I have friends that will call me out on my shit, and it's exhausting some days because I'm like, I just want to be coddled. But I think that is so important. There's that saying where you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I believe that you are also the nervous system of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So I think that's really important. And I've really cultivated through the process of elimination a core group. And I really have to sit with, is it really going to be that bad if I fail? And then because I have this element of working in the corporate world surrounded by men, I get to watch and observe how they don't give a fuck if they fail. They just move on. And I think now I'm understanding, wow, that is so powerful. That's such a powerful lesson for me to have firsthand. So I'm trying to embody more of that, because as women, we're just like so coy and so afraid of being called out. A friend of mine and I were talking yesterday, and WeWork failed. They're all over the news. It's like, okay, whatever, move on.
Let's be honest, they failed multiple times. It has been an unraveling of failures since 2019. 15.
And so it's like, okay, so I'm trying to make a positive impact in the lives around me. And okay, if I fail, it's fine. I'm going to pivot. That's something as an entrepreneur I've learned you have to embody. It's like something doesn't work, you pivot. And whatever isn't working will lead you to your next pivot. That mindset has helped me tremendously.
Will you take us behind the curtain a little bit on your self-talk? Share as much as you feel comfortable. I think it's really important. We both look like, and we are successful, put together, amazing, beautiful women. We are those things. And I also happen to know the things that go through both of our minds, not totally on your end, but I think there's this belief that if you are where we are in our journeys, that we don't have to deal with those things anymore. And it's ridiculous. Again, I don't know if those things will ever leave. I think we just learn how to manage them better. And if you would be willing to even just a little glimpse, a little peek behind the curtain of what does that self-talk look like?
It's the most ridiculous thing. Well, the self-talk is internal because I'm not there yet where I can like vocalize in front of a mirror, but I have a playlist that has the most powerful songs and I will let my mind run wild on them. I will picture myself being called out on stage with like Oprah and I will see what I'm wearing. I will just like embody those goosebumps and the feeling. And I picture myself on multiple stages in India and like talking about impact and moving this needle on change. And I also write down things that I want to do that are just like so audacious. And I will finally say to you that my vision, my personal vision with SameSkin is to awaken the matriarchy and empower every woman. And I could never say that before. Just as of this week, I've been able to say it. I listen to a lot, like I listen to Unstoppable by Sia as though my life depends on it. A remix version, the original version. I also listen to a lot of The Greatest Showman, that playlist.
Oh, that song makes me bawl. Every time it comes on, I cry.
And I'm just like in my Uber and my iPhone, like your limit of like listening to this, you have exceeded this times 10. But that's what it takes because I have to like shift my thinking and I just have to, it's a muscle, right? You have to build on it. And that's what helps me build on it. But I'm not there yet where I could just stand in front of a mirror and just be like, you are great, because I wouldn't believe it.
It's really important. So many people try to use affirmations, but if it doesn't take root, then you might as well be saying whatever. It doesn't matter what you're saying because it's not landing, it's not rooting, it's not grounding within yourself to be able to grow and bloom.
But like put your favorite song on and just picture yourself conquering the world in whatever way seems fit to you. That will really, really shift the vibration in your body. I'll share the playlist with you later.
I would love to put it in the show notes of this if you're willing.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay, cool. So if you're listening, make sure that you are on the Bree Seely website or go to the Bree Seely website and grab the show notes that will give you access to Michelle's playlist. What do you think has been the most surprising thing that this journey has shown you or taught you?
That you make no money in the very beginning. I mean, it's such an uphill climb. And I have friends who are female founders and I've heard their struggles, but now witnessing it, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. I didn't think it would be this hard. And I understand like the nuances that I deal with. Like I'm highlighting women of color businesses. Most of them are small businesses. They don't have that budget, things like that. But I'm just now starting to venture into the whole like sponsorship phase of my business. And every story I've heard is how hard it is as a woman and then a woman of color to get any money. So I think that has been the most shocking thing because here we are, we on the forefront, we're screaming for change and change is here, but at the baseline, it's not. So yeah, that's my biggest rude awakening.
So many people underestimate the amount of time and energy it takes to build a community, to build a following, to build influence, to build people that are going to trust you and trust you enough to show up to your events and be vulnerable at your events. It's one thing to follow someone on social media, and it's another thing to actively invest your time and energy into becoming part of a community. And for you as the leader of that community to consistently show up and show them this is a safe space and this is a space you want to be a part of. It used to be that people, it was like 7 touches before someone would engage with you. And since the pandemic, I think it's gone up. I want to say it's more than doubled. I don't know the exact number, but it's like more than doubled. So if you imagine, you're going to have 50 plus touches with one single person to get them to trust you enough, not to mention multiple people, hundreds of people. I think that is an element that that it takes time to build that before money comes into the business.
And those are the things that are not shared as largely on social media, or you see a news article or a Vogue article on something and it's like, oh, we're going to talk about her success or his success today. And nobody's really sharing the underneath. And that is also why it's so important to have these circles where you can kind of come together and be like, wow, it fucking sucks.
It is. It is so important to talk about the challenges and the struggles. Obviously, we don't want to stay there, but that's a huge part of the mission of the rebrand of this podcast is I really want to highlight the truth behind it. I talk in the intro to this about we don't do success porn here and we don't do rags to riches. That is not the vibe. Most of that shit is fake anyways. A good marketing person, a good storyteller has come in, put together a very well-crafted narrative. They've rented the Ferrari. They've rented the Lamborghini. It's all fucking fake. That's really why I want to be having these conversations is to say, what does it actually look like to be in Michelle's shoes?
I'll be completely honest. I had a birthday last week, and right before that, I had like a complete meltdown in the car. My husband and I were going to the Indian consulate, and I was the girl at the consulate having like a semi breakdown. Luckily, everyone's phones had to be locked away, but it was because I just feel like I'm building and building and building in this little hole, corner of the internet, and I know there's a ripple effect. I just don't see it. And I'm like maxing out my resources, maxing out my energy, my time. And it's so much work. I know there's reward at the end of it, but like right now I am at that phase where I'm struggling and drowning. But as of yesterday, I hired an intern. And that's the other thing, right? You can wallow and you can stay there as long as you need to. And then you're like, okay, let me roll up my sleeves. What is going to help me? I reached out. And again, somebody in my network was like, oh my God, you have to use this service. They have interns from every school. So my intern is this incredible woman who is at Columbia. And this girl is way smarter than me and I need her. I have so much relief today.
That's exactly what we all have to do. And my question for you is on those days, obviously, like you broke down, you had your emotional release. On those days, how do you regain? Do you still have a tether to the hope and the knowing that it's coming? How do you get to the point where it's time to stop wallowing and take action? What does that process look like for you?
For me, once I cry it out, it's actually a great starting point, a fresh starting point. But I always have to think about my why. I will bring it right back to that girl who thought her entire life was over in 2018 and was so depressed. And then I look at the world I've created around me, which is essentially brand new. All my friends are high vibe tribe almost. And I've been able to attract them because of this work. And this work is hard because it's not glossy and glamorous, but I feel so attached to it that I'm like, okay, my why will always bring me back. What is your purpose and what is your why?
It is a North Star when you feel lost and in the woods and you can't see anything, but you can see the light of that North Star. It really can help pull you through when it's only darkness around you. So you are hosting a big event. It's in like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6 weeks from when this is releasing. Obviously, we're recording this early, but 6 weeks from the release date of this, I'm going to be in New York City hanging out with Michelle at her event. May or may not be on stage. Tell us what the event is, the importance of it, and why people should attend.
Okay, I am so excited for this. So it's our first annual large-scale event. We do many smaller events around New York City. This one is a day to bring cycle-breaking women together. So already just think of the energy in that room. My goal would be to have 150 women who are entrepreneurs or 9-to-5ers and anyone who is proactively breaking generational cycles in their daily life for us to come together and have a day of rest, reset, and obviously be inspired and hear how can we take away like a 10-minute meditation that I could do on the run? How can we incorporate a little me time right before we go to bed after a long day? Things like that are actionable. I've been to so many conferences and the things that I take away in the moment are great because I'm so inspired. And then I leave and I'm so drained. Like when I went to SVM, the thing I remember most about it is you started with the future self activation. So powerful. Months after, I think about that. And I can do that for myself now. And those things are so important to incorporate into your daily day, because as women and women of color, we all know we have to hustle twice as hard to get just as far. And that's a lot of work. I strongly believe we need extra support, and there's no shame in that. We need all the support in the world, a little village around every woman, and men need to be part of that too. I am looking forward to hosting an energetic conference, and we're going to call it Cyclebreakers, and we're coming up with a little tagline for it. But if you are in the New York City area or want to come to something that's going to elevate your frequency and shift your reality, I implore you to visit sameskincommunity.com/tickets and buy your tickets.
We're going to have that link in the description as well, so make sure that you check that out. The way that I see this, and we talked about making sure that we're tending to those non-achievements, and all the demographics that you just described, we are all very achievement focused. If we continue to be achievement focused, it's like we have a bucket, and every one of us, our buckets have holes in them. No matter how much we try to pour into those buckets, it just keeps draining out. We have too many things going on. We're scattered. When you first described this to me, the visual I got of this day is patching the holes in our bucket and giving ourselves the ability to hold that refill that we're all doing for ourselves, and learn the tools to make sure that we keep those holes patched so that we don't get home and it springs a leak again here and there and all these other places. I am very excited to be in New York City, seeing you and catching up with you in person and being at this event with 150 other women. I cannot wait. We're recording this in November, let's not lie. And it's one of the few bright, shining pins in my mind in 2024 so far. I'm so excited to be there in the room.
Thank you. I always think of it as your iPhone needs systems update every so often to fix a bug. And guess what? We need those too. So come update your systems with us.
And again, it's sameskincommunity.com/tickets. Make sure you grab your ticket. Come join us. Please make sure that you DM me if you're going to be in the room and say, Bree, keep an eye out for me. Would love to connect with all of you in person and hang out in New York City with everyone, because it's a pretty cool city and I miss it so much. Any last thoughts or words of wisdom or pieces that you wanted to touch on before we wrap?
I would just like to leave everyone with this. Our intuition, especially in today's day and age, is something we need to come home to every single day, because it's so overwhelming in the world. And there are days when I can't even show up with everything that's going on in reality right now. And it's important to remember we have to still keep living our lives and tending to ourselves, even though the world around us is crumbling. Any change we want to see on a large scale is going to start with us in family and in community. So pour into your community and family, and that's going to echo outside. But as much as we want to be at rallies and things like that, I get it. But when you're screaming at the system, it's not going to change.
Last but not least, tell everyone where they can find you and connect with you.
You can find me on Instagram. My personal handle is Bombay2Brooklyn, and the SameSkin handle is sameskin.co. We also have a website, sameskincommunity.com. We're going to start a monthly newsletter. You can subscribe on the website. I'm just so excited to level up and scale and build this community so I can connect with many more incredible women, and we can all influence the next generation.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Entrepreneur Coach podcast. I hope you gained valuable wisdom from this episode and have at least one thing you can act on today. As I always say, listening to this episode will not change your life. What you do afterwards will. Please be sure to leave a rating and a review of the show, and don't forget to share this episode with a friend or colleague who could use it. Last but not least, please have the audacity to believe in the inevitability of your success today. You deserve it.